Street Fair, Book 2 of the Fair Folk Chronicles, written by Jeffrey Cook and Catherine Perkins, narrated by Fairy Princess Lolly. Chapter 19, Rushed and Real. Megan woke with a start to her mother's voice. "Megan, get ready! Breakfast in 15 minutes!" She started to get up, then dropped back to her pillow with a groan. Everything hurt, most especially her feet. A little more time was spent debating how long she could stay in bed and still get downstairs in time. Then she thought of her reflection in the mirror, the mud, the bloodstains, the scrapes, and the messy, tangled hair. She decided a hot shower might be the best option for aching muscles and making sure that her mother didn't ask too many awkward questions. Rediscovering the bass the previous night might have distracted her from thinking too much about Megan's appearance, but it couldn't last forever. The water was almost scalding, but it did ease some of the sore muscles. She bandaged her scrapes as subtly as she could, then had to spend longer than she wanted trying to get her hair untangled and brushed out. Her mother was calling her down for breakfast and then saying she was 5 minutes late and it was getting cold by the time she finished pulling on her new shirt and jeans. She tried to dash towards the dining room to show she was hurrying, before it turned into a bit of a quick limp instead. It was only when she saw the layout that she paused to consider the oddity of her mother cooking breakfast. The O'Reillys certainly recognized the most important meal of the day, but it was usually a meal of boring cereals, milk, and fruit, served with vitamins. There were exceptions, but they usually didn't involve pancakes, scrambled eggs, ham, and makeshift hash browns. "What's the occasion?" she asked as she sat down, wincing and wishing she'd been more careful with her words, as if this new take on her mother could break at any moment, and the woman she'd left before the fair could return if she said or did anything wrong. "Going to my first concert in..." She paused, trying to count the years. "Going to a concert with my daughter. I thought something a little special was in order. And you'll need your energy. I looked up Sax Violins on the internet last night. Apparently, it's a very high-energy show." Of course she'd looked them up. Megan also noted bits of green amidst the eggs, which turned out, on closer examination, to be spinach, and diced apples in the pancakes. When the glass of milk was added, the breakfast might be unusually extravagant, but it was still balanced. Despite the changes, this Sheila O'Reilly was still definitely her mother, and somehow that made Megan feel a lot better. The two sides of her had apparently coexisted well enough, as the obsessively organized album liner notes and extra band supplies in storage had attested. "Yeah," Megan finally said, "this is going to be fun." She was sure of it, and once breakfast was done, she went back upstairs and took her medication, saving half of the multicolored pills for later. "I think that's Lonnie's car pulling up outside," her mother called eventually. "I'll meet you for the concert at 5. "Thanks, Mom." Megan hobbled back down the stairs and straight for the front door. "Yep, that's Spaceship. So I'll see you then." Justin, in his full Seahawks livery, was already stepping out to get Megan's door. Seeing him and Lonnie, who looked every bit as worn as Megan felt, and with even more scrapes and bruises evident, brought her mind back to the situation. "So, what do we do until the concert?" she asked as she sat down. "Take in the Fremont Fair," Lonnie said. "Right." After all the excitement yesterday, it seemed like there should be something more, or something big and obvious happening. The dead didn't rise from their graves every day, after all, at least as far as she knew. Likewise, Aisling apparently hadn't seen her former captor in years, and suddenly he just turned up. She tried to settle her racing thoughts by assuring herself that they'd foiled the butterfly collector's attempts to collect all the shrouds, for whatever reason he wanted them. Her thoughts quickly responded back that he still had half the map and maybe he only needed 1 or 2 of them, and that he might try and send the other whites for the ones he hadn't collected. As Megan stared out the window, pondering this and keeping an eye out for the center of the universe, she heard the edge of conversation, and as she slowly realized what it was, she was all the more determined to keep her eyes out the window. "You're not married, are you, Justin?" Lonnie asked. "No. My family were landed and respectable, but I wasn't the heir to a dukedom or anything that would require marrying young. I certainly wasn't going to even start thinking of that sort of stuff until I'd earned my knighthood." "Well, you earned your knighthood a few years early, as it happens. Granted, a few centuries late chronologically, but a few years early in your life." "Yes, well, with all due respect to him, His Majesty cheated some there." Getting to the fair was a welcome relief. By the time they found parking, they had a walk of several blocks, but the spectacle was already coming to them. Flags flew everywhere, with even more rainbows than usual for Fremont. Jugglers filled the air with asymmetrically rhythmic color, and buskers filled it with music. People thronged the sidewalks, thousands upon thousands of very human people. Megan briefly found herself walking near a green woman. She wasn't about to mistake her for a jade statue, though. The body paint had none of the eerie perfection of some fairy complexions. With all that had been going on, part of her found something very comforting about that. There were also numerous pauses as they moved, so Megan, Justin, or often both, could say hello to some of the many dogs being taken down to the fair, once they verified with the various owners that it was all right to do so. Megan spared a moment to hope Cash'd have no problem carrying the basket of kittens from her home to the stage. Once they reached the various canopy tents lining the street, bedecked with streamers and bead curtains, they spent a while window shopping. Lonnie picked up some rose-hip-scented liniment at an apothecary, applying it to one wrist and elbow before offering it to Megan. "This is good stuff. Better than aspirin." "Better than aspirin. You should try it," she suggested, gesturing back to the middle-aged woman in the booth. "She does good work." "What did you pay for it with?" Megan asked as she reached for the bottle. "Cash," Lonnie said with a sigh, "but asking is a good sign, even if in the wrong place." They skipped buying anything else, but Megan spent a lot of time examining the various arts and crafts, which were in abundance at the fair, while Lanny had to stop every time they passed a booth selling books. Eventually, tired feet and sore muscles won out, and they bought drinks and went to sit on the grass for a while, listening to the music coming from a rooftop party across the street from the fair. Parts of the crowd were just starting to drift towards the parade route when Lonnie insisted that they'd done enough resting and should go find a good spot to watch the parade from. "My feet still hurt. 5 more minutes?" Megan asked. "You at least have a hope of seeing over someone if we don't get right in front. I don't want to spend another year hearing about it secondhand later. Let's go!" And soon there were marching bands, their different songs blending and unblending with the rooftop parties and everything else. There were dancing troupes and hula hoops. There were many, many packs of bicyclists, some of them even fully clothed. Either way, the colors were bright. "Lonnie?" Megan asked quietly, as quietly as the ruckus from the interweaving musics would allow. "What?" "How much of all of this is people like us, and like Kasha?" Lonnie sighed. "Megan, yes, a lot of the community of folk are going to come to something like this. So will 59,900 other people. We're not the predominant force. People like us play an important role, but the whole revelry and creative spark can still be 99% human." "Yeah, I guess it can," and Megan smiled and looked forward to her mother's arrival.
Hello friends, this is Gunther Hammerhands. Thank you for checking out Fairy Princess Lolly's channel. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. And if you'd like to support these magical creations, fly over to our Patreon and join the fairy family. Safe travels!